Before the NHS issued its first prescription in 1948, your grandmother was already running a fully equipped medical practice from her kitchen. No degree, no license, no bill. Just knowledge passed from mother to daughter across generations that the pharmaceutical industry spent the following 50 years making sure you never learned. Subscribe. Let us count down. Item 10. The Mustard Poultice. Before paracetamol existed, every working-class British mother made a mustard poultice for chest infections, bronchitis, and persistent coughs. Ground mustard mixed with plain flour and warm water spread between 2 layers of flannel and applied to the chest for 20 minutes. The active compound in mustard, allyl isothiocyanate, increases blood circulation to the chest wall and stimulates the airways. Mustard plasters were once standard treatment in British hospitals, documented in the British Medical Journal as far back as the 1880s and available in pharmacies as prepared dressings well into the 20th century. Research published in peer-reviewed journals has confirmed that a mustard seed compress applied to the chest for 20 minutes measurably improves symptoms in patients with chronic bronchitis. When commercial cough syrups and then antibiotics entered the British market through the 1950s, the mustard poultice was replaced. Not because it had stopped working, but because nobody could patent flannel and mustard. Your grandmother mixed hers by hand in a kitchen basin. Item 9. Raw honey on wounds. Before antiseptic creams became a bathroom cabinet staple, your grandmother applied raw honey directly to cuts, burns, and infected wounds and covered them with clean linen. The antimicrobial properties of honey come from its production of hydrogen peroxide, its acidity, its osmotic effect on bacteria, and compounds including defensin-1 that inhibit bacterial growth. These properties are effective against a wide range of bacteria, including strains resistant to modern antibiotics. The NHS supply chain in England and Wales now distributes medical-grade honey products from approximately 10 approved suppliers specifically for wound care in NHS settings, a formal institutional acknowledgement that your grandmother's remedy works. The antiseptic cream industry, dominated by brands including Savlon, which was introduced to the British market in 1971, grew by positioning modern chemical preparations as more scientific than traditional ones. The science has since confirmed the opposite. Your grandmother's honeypot was a legitimate medical instrument. Item 8. Garlic for infection. Before antibiotics were available on NHS prescription, your grandmother treated early signs of infection, chest tightness, and respiratory illness with raw crushed garlic, either eaten directly, rubbed onto the chest, or prepared as a warm infusion. The active compound in freshly crushed garlic is allicin, first identified scientifically in 1944, which exhibits confirmed antibacterial activity against a wide range of bacteria, including multi-drug-resistant strains. Louis Pasteur himself documented garlic's antibacterial properties in 1858. During the First World War, British military medics used raw garlic juice on wound dressings when conventional antiseptics ran short. The pharmaceutical industry's promotion of prescription antibiotics from the 1950s onwards systematically repositioned plant-based antimicrobials as folk superstition rather than documented science. Your grandmother crushed her garlic on the wooden board that had not been cleaned since her own mother bought it. The allicin worked regardless. Item 7. The Goose Fat Chest Rub. In the 1930s and 1940s, every working-class British kitchen kept a jar of rendered goose fat on the highest shelf, reserved specifically for one purpose. When a child developed a persistent winter cough, the kind that settled in the chest and refused to shift, your grandmother would warm the fat in a pan until it ran liquid, rub it generously across the child's chest and back, press a sheet of brown paper over it to hold the heat, pin a flannel vest over the paper, and send the child to bed. She had no idea what allyl isothiocyanate was. She had no idea that occlusive chest applications increase local blood flow and can stimulate mucus clearance. She knew that the treatment had worked for her mother and her grandmother, and the woman across the street, and every working-class family in the county for as long as anyone could remember. The Goose Fat Chest Rub was standard practice throughout Britain well into the 1950s. Then came Vicks Vapor Rub. The product had existed since 1905, but was marketed aggressively in Britain from the 1950s onwards by what became the Procter & Gamble healthcare division, positioning petroleum-based mentholated chest rubs as the modern, clean, medically endorsed alternative to traditional animal fat preparations. The advertising worked. By 1970, the Goose Fat jar had left the kitchen shelf in most British homes. The mechanism by which Vicks works, creating a sensation of warmth and airway opening through menthol's action on cold receptors in the nasal passages, is different from the mechanism by which an occlusive fat rub works. They are not the same treatment. Your grandmother was not using a primitive version of Vicks. She was using a different treatment entirely, and Procter & Gamble had a commercial interest in the distinction never being made clear. Item 6. Elderflower for wounds and fever. Before antiseptics and fever reducers became available over every pharmacy counter, your grandmother gathered elderflower from the hedgerows every June and prepared two separate preparations: a cold infusion for bathing infected wounds and a warm tea for reducing fever. Elderflower contains compounds including rutin, quercetin, and chlorogenic acid with confirmed antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties. Research published in peer-reviewed microbiology journals has confirmed that elderflower extract demonstrates inhibitory activity against Staphylococcus aureus, including MRSA strains, the same bacteria responsible for the majority of infected minor wounds. The European Medicines Agency has formally assessed elderflower and confirmed evidence supporting its traditional use for early colds and fever management. The commercial fever reducer market, dominated by paracetamol brands from the 1960s onwards, grew by positioning pharmaceutical products as safer and more reliable than plant-based alternatives. Your grandmother's elderflower grew in every hedgerow in Britain. It still does. Item 5. Cold clay poultice for inflammation. Before anti-inflammatory creams and ibuprofen gel reached British medicine cabinets, your grandmother applied a thick paste of cold clay or cold damp earth to sprains, bruises, insect stings, and inflamed joints, covered it with a damp cloth, and replaced it as it dried and warmed. The mechanism is simple and confirmed by modern physiotherapy. Sustained cold application to an inflamed area reduces blood flow to the site, decreases swelling, and interrupts the inflammatory response. The specific use of clay adds a drawing effect through osmotic action on the skin surface. Sports medicine now recommends immediate cold application to soft tissue injuries as the primary first-line treatment. The pharmaceutical industry's development of topical anti-inflammatory gels, Voltarol, was introduced in Britain in 1974 and built a market worth hundreds of millions of pounds. Replaced this practice with a purchased product, doing a similar job at considerably greater expense. Your grandmother's clay cost nothing and came from the garden. Item 4. Onion and honey cough syrup. Before Benylin cough syrup entered the British market in 1959, every working-class British mother made her own cough mixture from two ingredients already in the kitchen: a raw onion sliced into rings layered with honey in a jar, left to stand overnight, and strained into a bottle the following morning. The resulting liquid combined the antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties of raw honey with the sulfur compounds in onion that act as natural expectorants, loosening mucus and making it easier to clear from the airways. A 2021 systematic review published in BMJ Evidence-Based Medicine found that honey was more effective than standard cough preparations, including those containing dextromethorphan for reducing cough frequency in children. Benylin is now a £100 million annual brand in the British cough and cold market. Your grandmother made an equivalent preparation for the cost of one onion and a spoonful of honey. Item 3. Dock leaves and plantain for skin. Before hydrocortisone cream and antihistamine tablets became standard British pharmacy products, your grandmother knew two plants that grew on every roadside verge, every garden border, and every stretch of common land in Britain: dock leaves and broadleaf plantain, and applied them directly to stings, rashes, minor burns, and irritated skin. Dock leaves contain oxalic acid and tannins with confirmed anti-inflammatory properties. Broadleaf plantain contains aucubin and actioside, compounds with documented anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial activity, and has been used in formal clinical research as a treatment for minor skin conditions. The active compounds in broadleaf plantain have been shown in laboratory studies to inhibit histamine release, the same mechanism targeted by pharmaceutical antihistamines. The over-the-counter skin treatment market in Britain is now worth over £500 million annually. Both plants grow freely on virtually every patch of unmaintained ground in the country. Your grandmother never walked past a dock leaf without knowing exactly what it was for. Item 2. Vinegar for fever and sunburn. Before after-sun products and fever-reducing medications became British household staples, your grandmother used white vinegar for two specific conditions: dabbed onto sunburned skin to reduce inflammation and diluted in water as a cooling wash for fever. The acetic acid in vinegar reduces skin surface pH, which has a mild anti-inflammatory effect on sunburned tissue, and the evaporative cooling of a dilute vinegar wash assists in reducing surface body temperature during fever. These are not folk myths. They are basic physiological mechanisms that require no pharmaceutical preparation whatsoever. The after-sun market, dominated by brands including Boots, Sultan. After Sun, introduced in the 1970s, and aloe vera preparations marketed aggressively from the 1980s, grew by positioning commercial preparations as more effective than household alternatives. White vinegar costs under £1 per litre. Your grandmother kept a bottle specifically for this purpose. Item 1. The Window Box Medicine Cabinet. Before the NHS made prescriptions the standard British response to minor ailment, every working-class British windowsill or garden border grew the same four plants: mint for digestion and nausea, lavender for headaches and sleep, thyme for chest infections and sore throats, and chamomile for anxiety and stomach complaints. These were not decorative, they were functional. The European Medicines Agency has formally assessed all four plants and confirmed evidence supporting their traditional uses. Thyme contains thymol, a compound with confirmed antimicrobial properties against respiratory pathogens that is still used as an active ingredient in some modern throat preparations. Lavender's effect on the central nervous system has been confirmed in multiple randomized controlled trials. The global herbal supplement market is now worth over £100 billion annually. A commercial industry built almost entirely on selling back to modern consumers the knowledge your grandmother grew for free on her windowsill. She did not need a supplement aisle. She needed a south-facing window and four plants she had known since childhood. That knowledge costs nothing to recover. This is not medical advice. It is British history. Every remedy on this list was used by ordinary working-class British families for generations before the NHS existed and the pharmaceutical industry arrived to replace them. Some worked better than what replaced them. Some worked differently. All of them cost nothing and came from things growing in the garden or sitting in the kitchen. This week, plant one of the four windowsill plants. Tell me in the comments which of these your grandmother actually used, because I promise you somebody in your family knew every last one of them by name and by use, and never once needed to read the instructions. That knowledge did not die, it just went quiet. It is time to start listening again.